Morning, guys. Hope we are doing well today. Another Monday, another week. So here we go. Hey, wanted to open scripture with y'all this morning. And so if you will stop right now and flip over to Matthew 27 and read verses 11 through 56. So starting with the trial of Jesus and finishing with his death. Matthew 27, 11 through 56. Go ahead and stop right now, read that through. That'll save us a bunch of time. But I love this week. Rebecca and I were talking. It feels different from any kind of Easter week than we've ever had. Some of it we can't celebrate with the people that we want to. And so kind of adding these rhythms into our life to spend some time with the Lord and try and think through these things. Just preparing our hearts for kind of the Super Bowl Sunday of the church. And so wanted to start this week kind of right there, leading into this. And so one of my favorite things in reading this passage, and I taught on it in our at club this week, is the time of the year that it is. I think there's so many times that I can skip through these little details. And so Jesus is standing trial before Pontius Pilate, and they're accusing him of these things. And then they throw this little detail in there. It says, "Now it was the governor's custom each year during the Passover celebration to release one prisoner to the crowd." And it's interesting to look back and think about what the Passover was. Like, you go back hundreds of years to when the Israelites were being released from slavery and there were all the plagues, right? And the last one was the first ever Passover. God told them to find an unblemished lamb and kill it and paint the blood over the door. And that was pointing to this ultimate sacrifice of Jesus. That the people would be safe from the angel of death because of the blood of the unblemished lamb. And ultimately, Jesus dying years and years and years in the future on that same date, like that's where I start to look and I'm like, holy cow, Lord is putting this plan together and it is incredible. I hope you would take a moment and just think about that plan that God put together and just how special and perfect it is. Second thing that sticks out is in verse 20. It says, "Meanwhile, the leading priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas to be released and for Jesus to be put to death." And then in verse 26, "So Pilate released Barabbas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged." Like, put yourself in Barabbas's shoes for a little bit. This guy, and you may not know much about him, but he led this kind of violent rebellion, and he's put in jail, pretty much awaiting death. And then one day they come up and they open up his cell and they say, "Hey, you are free to go." He's like, "What do you mean I'm free to go?" And he sees Jesus led in and he's like, Jesus, like he's done nothing wrong. And I wonder like the mental gymnastics that he's going through. And do we put ourselves in that exact same cell and realize that Jesus is completely taking our place? Nothing that we have done, that we are sitting there awaiting our death sentence. Scripture says dead in our trespasses and sins. And that the cell door is swung open on our behalf because Jesus was willing to step into the cell. Man, I love that this is all in the exact same passage. It gets me so pumped up. And the third thing, if you flip on over, you go through the death of Jesus, talking about the nailing to the cross, the people mocking him, people casting lots for his clothes, being beaten, and then finally talking about the fact that sin is defeated when he says it is finished. And I think in times like these where we're really just struggling with having a hard time and feeling like we're suffering and work, money may not be coming in and we're bored and we feel like the world is just moving towards ruin. I see people keep asking this question, like, does God even care? And I think if you flip back to this passage, you can't help but realize absolutely God cares. That God watched his son stand in our place as we were walking by mocking and he let his son pay the penalty for our sin. So guys, I just want you to rest in that this week. As boredom sets in, as financial frustrations, as the question sinks in, man, does God even care? Doesn't he even know that we're suffering? Like, why doesn't he just end this? I pray that we would go back to this passage and realize the plan that he has put in place from the beginning with the Passover. That we would put ourselves in the shoes of Barabbas, that the cell has been swung open and we don't have to pay for the crimes that we've committed. And that we would realize that God sat on that cross until it was finished in our place, proving once and for all that he cares, that he loves, and that he can do something about any of our situations. Love you guys. Hope this is encouraging for y'all this morning. Thanks.